Queria começar apresentando o Sebastián. Sebastián Lelio é um cineasta chileno. Seus 3 primeiros longa-metragens, A Sagrada Família, de 2005, Navidad, de 2009 e O Ano do Tigre, de 2011, lhe deram atenção internacional e vários prêmios. Em 2013, ele lançou Glória, no Festival de Berlim. Ele ganhou o prêmio do júri ecumênico, o prêmio Gilde, e Paulina Garcia, que atua e faz a personagem principal, Glória, ganhou um Urso de Prata de melhor atriz. O filme seguinte, Uma Mulher Fantástica, de 2017, também foi premiadíssimo em diversos festivais internacionais e se tornou o primeiro longa-metragem chileno a ganhar um Oscar de melhor filme em língua estrangeira. Em 2018, ele lançou o seu primeiro filme em inglês, Desobediência, com a Raquel Wise e a Raquel McAdams, e esse filme lhe rendeu 5 indicações e um prêmio no British Independent Film Awards. Em 2019, ele refilmou Glória nos Estados Unidos sob o título de Glória Bell, estrelando a Julianne Moore e John Turturro. E recentemente, em 2020, o Sebastián escreveu e dirigiu O Algoritmo, um dos curta-metragens da antologia Feito em Casa para Netflix. Hi, Sebastián.
Hello. Hi, Rosane.
We can start the interview. Let me just give a little comment in Portuguese. Olha, a gente vai fazer entrevista em inglês, porque o meu portunhol é sofrível e a gente não queria que vocês perdessem nada do que o Sebastián vai falar, mas tudo vai ser traduzido depois. So, Sebastián, I just told the audience that we're doing this interview in English so that nothing gets lost in translation, and because even though we have the Portuñol language in common, I'm not very good at it.
Me neither, so good.
So my first question, I mean, you have such an impressive biography and your accomplishments are like probably the dream of many Latin American directors and writers. So I bet you have heard this question before, but I have to ask, why do you think your films travel so well? It's a difficult question.
It's difficult to, indicate one reason. I suppose it's when it has happened, it's because of a combination of factors. I made 3 films before filming Gloria, which was the first film that really got international distribution for real, etc. So those first films were really like a second film school for me, and I was lucky enough to make them without really worrying too much about results. But they taught me how to face, the process of making a film, from writing to editing. So my personal angle on how to deal with each process of filmmaking, I learned it from these 3 films. But after I made these 3 films, I really felt that the time to try to really connect with an audience had come, and it was really organic. It wasn't like I'm gonna make this decision so the film will be successful. No, it was like I feel that now I'm prepared to reach out for wider audiences, and I think Gloria, for example, it was really a game changer for me. It was released all over the world and seen by so many people, and so many people seemed to really connect with the film. And I think it was probably because, first of all, I was genuinely trying to connect. If you're not genuinely trying to connect, then if it happens, it will be by chance. But I think the first thing is the will to reach out, and then probably there is a factor of a certain capacity of the films to resonate with what's happening socially in the world. A certain zeitgeist that Gloria and A Fantastic Woman, for example, they both, I think, have this factor of being thought a bit in advance of processes that would unfold in the world by the time the films were being released.
I think,
please.
no, I think your sensibility and voice really moved me in every film I watched this week. And Gloria, I think it's a very courageous film and very moving film as well. And I love that she starts the movie, your main character, and ends the movie dancing, and like a cycle. And I rewatched actually Gloria and watched for the first time Gloria Bell this week, and I noticed how much in common they have. Sometimes even the same shots, like the scene we just saw, but they also have lots of things that are different, especially in my opinion in relation to the actresses. Do you agree? Do you think what are the differences and the similarities for you in both films? I mean, you reshot the film after 6 years. It must have been an adventure.
It was crazy. I didn't want to remake my own film. I was offered to do it twice before, and I said no because I'm working on my new stuff. And but then Julianne came in the equation, and it was really like she said to me, I would only do it if you directed it. And I said I would only do it if you play the main role. And she said, but I'm terrified. And I said, me too. So it was like it came from a place of admiration for an actress, just like the first Gloria is kind of like a love letter to Paulina Garcia. So that's where the Gloria Bell comes from a place of fear, terror, of failing, and admiration. And I took it as an artistic challenge to try to make that story live again, to be alive again somehow. And so it's almost like a theater play that is staged again with a different set of actors in a different culture after a few years. So it's like a cover of a song with a new rock band. That's how I took it. But then the strategy of Gloria and Gloria Bell, I would say, of the script and of the project of Gloria as a cinematic device, is to turn a secondary character into an absolute protagonist. She should be, and especially in 2013, things have changed, I think, slowly, but they have. She should have been only the mother or the lover of the main character. She should have say, to the son, hey, take care, put your seatbelt on, bye. And then the camera goes with the real interest of a film that's the man, But here, the game of the film is that the camera stayed and stayed and stayed with Gloria, going through the entire emotional spectrum and seeing her in moments that are film worthy and moments that are so pedestrian that you might wonder, why are they part of a film?
But that makes her human, right? We feel
exactly.
She's human exactly because of these scenes.
Precisely.
And real.
Exactly, yeah. This is exactly the game of the film, is to invite or to force the spectator to see someone from every possible angle, in every possible kind of situation, glorious or pedestrian, until you end up feeling the world from within her skin.
Yes.
Until you feel you know her like you know a loved one.
You recognize yourself in her. That's what happened with me, and in all your films, really. You recognize not only people you know, but similarities and things you could do and reactions you could have. But I thought Paulina's Gloria she laughed a lot and she smiled a lot, whereas Julianne's Gloria is more thoughtful. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you work with actors, and how much do they influence your film and your directing?
Well, I mean, this case is a good example to talk about this because,
Yes, I
you know,
know.
in this exercise of observing someone so closely, you know, for so long, to try to create these portraits that are you know, three-dimensional of an existence. What I'm interested in is, of course, the cinematic artificial device of a character, which is really a construct. It's really an intellectual effort that is waiting for the actor to incarnate the character. So for me, a character is always half of a creation. You know, it's a project, and then I am interested in my characters. Of course, I have written them. I have you know, thought of them so much. I already think I know them and love them even before the actors come in. But then when they come in, I'm interested in the conjunction, in the intersection of what my project was and what, in this case, Paulina or Julian will bring. In actually even farther than that, I'm interested in who they are and what they will bring to the artistic battle of trying to defend the character in front of our eyes, which is another way to define what acting for cinema is. You know, is watching an actor giving an artistic battle in front of your eyes. Yes. You know, so I'm interested in the actor. I'm interested in the person that is interpreting the character. And in that case, Gloria and Gloria Bell have that in common, and that's what they are different. They are different because the person that is giving that battle has changed. There's another soul at the center, even though the intellectual project of the character remains more or less the same.
Do you rehearse? Do you prepare with the actors and actresses you work with? Do you rehearse a lot, or do you leave things to happen on set?
I rehearse very little. I don't like to rehearse that much. I prefer to write and to really understand how the story works, the internal mechanics of what make the story, you know, be coherent. And it's like someone used a metaphor that I really loved, that it's like a transparent clock. You know, like a script, you know it so well that you can turn it up the other way around and you see the mechanisms, but then you turn it again and it's a clock that is creating the illusion of giving you the time, you know, but it's really, everything is a mechanism. And in that sense, I think that if I get to the you know, process of filming, rehearsing is not really a thing. You know, it's choosing good actors that love the script and that I love their work, and then I just don't think that you can create an acting school while you're shooting. You don't have time for that, you know. And even while rehearsing, it's like you called someone that you respect and you consider a great artist. That person supposedly likes the script, and then you have a few hours to get it right, you know. But being that said, my sets tend to be very loose, very. I don't like tense sets. They freak me out. It's like they tense me, you know. So I prefer to try to create an atmosphere of mutual protection and caring, and to allow each other, everyone to be foolish and to dare
Right.
you know, to dare to try things out, and then knowing that we will take care of each other, you know.
But how was it? How did that work with the foreign crew in Gloria Bell and also in Disobedience? How was it for you to work with the crew of foreigners, people that you don't usually work with, that are not from your country? How was that?
Well, in both cases, I had written the scripts or co-written the scripts, so I also had that knowledge of what I was doing, you know, so to say. I was a little expert on. Of course, I mean, when you get to film something, you are already kind of like an expert on the film. Maybe you are the expert, you know.
Yes.
So being that said, I was of course afraid that working in this circuit was going to maybe be more restrictive or more. I was going to be like hands tied, and I was not going to be able to tense and but you know what? That wasn't at all my experience. Like at the end of the day, it was about having not enough time, so being always late, trying to get to the end of the day with everything you promised you were going to film done. And there was the camera, you know, the nuclear team and the actors, and we were all in love with the project. We didn't have enough money, we didn't have enough time, and the ultimate magic was going to happen or not in that space. So it really felt like making films in Chile.
We never have enough
You know?
money or time, I think, all around the world. I know.
Yeah.
I've heard this complaint all the time because we're building a universe.
Yeah.
I would like to ask now an excerpt of A Fantastic Woman, which I love. So I watched this film again this week, and I cheered again when this scene came up, because Marina finally defies this family who judges her so harshly. And since the beginning of the film, I think the audience waits for a moment like this, when Marina will finally defy this family. Did you have this scene in mind, or how this would happen since the beginning when you wrote the script? Or it came while you were writing? Because I think it's such a key scene.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember very well if it was there from the beginning. I'm sure it wasn't, because the process of finding the story was really like a spiral. Really, like what we started with wasn't at all the complete picture. You know, like sometimes you start with more elements of you have a map that is less blurry. In this case, that wasn't the case. It was a very hard script to write. It was difficult to write, probably because it's dealing with different tonalities and even genres. It's oscillating between, you know, kind of like a classic romance, and then it turns into the study of a woman, and then it's more complex than that, and then it's a ghost story, and it's a film about humiliation and revenge, and then there are moments of fantasy. So it wasn't easy to put these things together. And to answer your question, I think that the car sequence came like somewhere in the middle of the process, but because in a certain way, it's not too different from Gloria. If you think the paintball scene, when she finally takes revenge and finally does what we're waiting for, it's not too dissimilar to this car scene, jumping on the roof of the car. which is
climbing on top of them and jumping on top of them. And the other one, you're right, she kills him in a sense, right? She doesn't, but she kills what she feels for him. And well, with this parallel, I have to ask about your work with Gonzalo Maza, the script writer, who wrote both films with you, and you work in various films with him, right? Also The Year of the Tiger. And I'd like to ask, how do you work together? When did you meet?
Well, we met in Santiago as young, filmmakers or writers, as aspirings, and Gonzalo was he still is, but he was a more active film critic when I was starting, and I always liked his columns or articles. So we became friends, and I was writing my second film, and we were just as friends discussing about that film, and he said, "Why don't you let me help you in the writing?" And I said, "Well, let's try," and that's how it started. Yeah, I mean, I miss working with him because it has been a while since the last collaboration we had, but it was a very intense relationship. Gonzalo has a huge film culture, and I have seen lots, I think, but I think Gonzalo more. So it was always, the conversation was always about based on references. So we would say, the vertigo part of the film, and then we would go into the elevator to the gallows segment, and then so it was always like these Frankensteins of cinematic references. That but this was really fun about working with Gonzalo. It was we created our own nomenclature for each film, and it was based on it was kind of like a pantheon of films we loved, orbitating around what we were writing. So that was really, really special.
Do you work side by side, or how do you write the script together? Do you work together side by side, or do you exchange emails or script versions?
No, mainly together for the foundation, and then we work separately, and we send things to each other, and yeah, that's. But the origin, we in both cases, the Gloria and A Fantastic Woman, just to talk about those two, where they came out after long discussions of what to do, what the story could be about, and when we felt that we had enough to start writing, we would take separate ways, and then exchange emails, and yeah.
I read in an interview that you made an interesting parallel between Marina's right to say goodbye to the man she loved and the right of the families of people who died during the Chilean dictatorship to say goodbye to the people. Could you elaborate on that? I thought it was so moving, this parallel. Did you have it since the beginning of the film, or was it something you thought of afterwards?
No, but I think, no, I had that notion while we were writing, that this is a film about the right to say goodbye to a loved one after he or she has died. And then, of course, because the film was being made in Chile, the resonance with the detenidos desaparecidos,
yes,
was unavoidable. But then I think I said it with cautiously, because it's not about that, But
yes.
then it resonated with that, of course. Yeah, I guess that for me, a film has many dimensions, and and it has to be like this because a film is a complex animal. It has of course, the narrative dimension, so to say, the literarian dimension, all the performance. The performances and the acting is a planet in itself. The aesthetics and the themes, how they resonate with the society from where the film emerged,
and how with your own repertoire, right? With your own history and repertoire and the society you emerged from as part of who you are.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and so I guess what I was trying to say is that the political dimension is a very important one, but it's another one, of an animal that is so complex. You can watch a film and not necessarily step into those territories as a spectator, and the film should be still effective and strong,
But even though maybe it wasn't your intention, and I agree that many dimensions and messages and themes are in the film because they are in you and in Gonzalo and the people who worked in the film. But the film had an important role and helped gender identity bill in Chile pass, right?
Yes.
So it did have a very objective political dimension also.
Yeah.
And this film has so many of these visual metaphors, so many poetic moments, while your other films are more naturalistic. So why did you make this choice for this film?
I guess I've been trying to find ways to escape from realism, which is difficult for, I would say, in general for Latin American cinema, and in Chile, it's been quite a task to overcome the limits of realism, in film. So I guess that's why. But then while writing the script, I understood that the film needed to have a connection to its subject of study, to Marina. It needed to have a reflection of that. It needed to be a reflection of that. So the notion of making a trans-genre film about a transgender character popped up, and it was like it opened so many doors expressively. Because again, as I mentioned before, the film oscillates between different territories, and then Marina holds everything together. But the film is, as you have seen, it goes to moments of that are fantastic, that are not realistic, and she flies at a moment, and there is a ghost, and so it was a great opportunity to very organically to expand the limits of what was possible in a film like this, that should have been probably should have been shot under the raw light of social realism, if you know what I'm trying to say. And here, what we did is go in the exact opposite direction, trying to film her with a certain splendor, if you allow me to use that word, not in a raw way, but in a way that was hopefully saying, you deserve this film. You're not the victim for us, the filmmakers. You're someone that we want to look in a ruthless way, but also we want to do a beautiful portrait of you. We don't want to treat you bad with our cinematography. The world has done enough. We
fall in love with her. We fall in love with Marina, and these scenes are part of the reason we do, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They're very beautiful. How did
Thank you.
Daniela Vega, the main actress, influence or inspire Marina?
Well, that was very organic too, because when the idea of the story happening to a transgender girl appeared, I felt, and Gonzalo did too, that it was impossible to continue writing because we needed to really see who was out there. You know, by then I was living in Berlin for years, so I was a bit detached of what was happening in Santiago. So I didn't have any transgender friends in Chile. I was a bit disconnected. So we met with a few transgender women, and they were really generous, but we were not looking for an actress. I was looking for a consultant, someone that could, you know, be a friend of the project and respond questions that I might have, etc. And they all said, you should meet Daniela, Daniela Vega, the protagonist, the one that ended up, the woman that ended up being the protagonist. And we met her, and I loved her immediately. And very, very generously, she accepted to be this friend of the project. So during a year, I went back to Berlin, we were writing remotely, and I would call her and have conversations about, you know, asking her about her experience of having transitioned in Chile when she was 15, and how the microaggressions work on a daily basis, and her own experiences. And she never knew what the script was about. She was never involved in the script. But I always knew that I was not going to make the film without casting a transgender actress in it. But I wasn't worrying about that yet, because I was worrying about trying to make the script work. And when the script was decent enough, you know, or at least I thought so, I was like, oh, who am I going to cast? You know, because this is not easy. And then it dawned on me, you know, it was like, but maybe our dear, you know, cultural advisor, wonderful by then already friend Daniela, maybe she that has some theater experience, that has made some like music videos, a small film, maybe, I mean, she's so talented, maybe she could be the one. And it was like, duh, you know, it was like a year after that, it was like, duh. So I sent her the script, and I said to her, would you like to be Marina? And she called back like in a couple of hours to Berlin, and she said to me, you're completely crazy. Like I don't even know how to drive.
And you love scenes that your characters drive or sing or listen to the radio. You love those.
Yeah, I have a weakness. Yeah. So luckily she said yes, but that's how it happened. Very, very organically, very, in a very natural way. Yes.
And then you won the Oscar, right, with this film. What? And then cut to, and so, what did that change in your life? What happened? Do you think many things changed before and after the Oscar?
Yeah, they did. They did. I was already working in this circuit of making films in English before the Oscar. So Disobedience and Gloria Bell were shot before the Oscar. They were released after, but I haven't made my after the Oscar film yet. You know, but yeah, I mean, in a professional level, of course, I think it consolidated that possibility of keep working in different languages, and which I'm so grateful of. And yeah, it's. I mean, of course, I'm absolutely grateful for what happened. It's a very powerful recognition. You know, people give a lot of power to that.
Of course.
But so at a personal level, of course, it creates some distortions about how people perceive you, which is really interesting. But I always ask to have the chance to film, you know, to be able to make films. So in that sense, I'm only grateful for the award. And in a more talking about the film, the fact that the Oscar gave the last impulse to reactivate the discussion in Congress about the gender identity law in Chile was like a real beautiful thing to witness to everyone that for everyone that was involved in the film.
Bachelet saw the film, right? I read about this. She watched the film.
Bachelet? Yes.
Bachelet. Yeah, I can't mention Bachelet.
Yeah, the thing is that the Oscar was like on a March the 4th, and Bachelet was leaving power like 5 days after that. And then a new, very right-wing government was going to take power democratically this time. And we were like, I will not, because it was the first Oscar for a feature film in the history of Chile. Of course, they called us from the President's Palace. And we were like, I will not go and show this thing to that guy. We have to run and show it to Bachelet, who is a human being, you know. And so we did, and we had a conversation after that, and she asked Daniela about her own experience, and Daniela spoke beautifully. She said she spoke with such strength, and then something happened in that meeting, and then before leaving power, she had ordered by legal means the Congress to discuss and legislate, you know. So they were forced to discuss it, and the more conservative sectors that a year before were saying, over my dead body, you know, God created man and woman, and all these beliefs, were now open to the idea of considering legislating. So it's great because it's not about winning over someone. It's about expanding what's possible, you know. It's about maybe turning someone that never thought it was possible to even think that someone like her is really a human being to suddenly consider it, you know?
Well done, very important. Your next film was then in English, right? Disobedience. And Raquel Wise was the one who came to you with the project, is this right?
Yes.
How did that happen?
She saw Gloria, and for some reason thought that I was the right person to adapt this novel about Orthodox Jews in the north of London. She made that strange connection, and I was being offered many things by then, but this was the one that really caught my attention, because I liked the novel very much, the world, the characters, and I thought that I could work within that territory, you know.
And there's this one scene in the film that Ronit is coming back to the neighborhood she grew up in, but she feels like a foreigner and she's treated like a foreigner. And did you feel like a bit of a foreigner, not only because of the language, but also getting into the Jewish Orthodox world? Who helped you out with that?
I felt, of course, like a foreigner. And but when you were describing this, I thought of Marina, you know.
Yes.
And I thought
you
of
had
Gloria.
already done that.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is that I was attracted to these characters because they had something that I've been attracted to for a long time, which is they are somehow, they don't fit, and they are, if not rebels, at least stubborn, you know, and they do it their own way, and that creates some friction with the world, and that out of that friction come out beautiful sparkles for a film. You know, that's Ronit, the character of Rachel Weisz in Disobedience, has this. She is somehow the outsider, the exile that comes back to the realm from where she was expelled. And in order to get into the world, I mean, and I'm not British, I'm not Jewish as far as I know, and so it was a bit petrifying at the beginning, how to talk about this with no authority, and then I understood that it was, as any story, it was operating at mythological level. So you can detach yourself from the details of the cultural nuances and analyze the story abstracted from that. So in a certain way, the story of Disobedience is the story of the daughter of a king that has recently died, and she comes back while the throne is empty, and in order to mourn his father, she goes back to the realm from where she was expelled, and that trip hides another one that lies within, which is the one that she encounters after she meets the love of her life when she was a young girl, and so on, you know. And so I that was my way in, you know, to make the story works in terms of characters. And then I had 7 consultants during the writing process, so I would call them all year except for Fridays. And
sunset to sunset.
Sunset to sunset. And I would like, how do you set a table? Why do, you know, married women wear wigs? What are the ritualistics of Friday night sex? Why this, why that? And so I slowly became an expert on the script, not on Judaism, of course, you know. And then during the shooting, but I did this because I didn't want the shooting to be a nightmare of, wait a moment, we don't do this, we don't do that, it's impossible, we don't use those, you know, paintings, or we would never use those kind of curtains, because it's such a ritualized society. And so by the time we get to the shooting, I could concentrate on the human level, you know, on what was going on with the characters, which was what ultimately would make us connect with the story. And then during the shooting, I had many consultants too, in order to get everything right in terms of culture, you know, the portrait of a culture.
You choose characters, well, at least your most recent films, that are clearly very different from you, but you connect to them beautifully, and the result is in the films, right? This result. Do you think an author should be able to tell any story? Because right now, sometimes there's the idea that certain people should tell certain stories. But I mean, this moving film about a woman that was born into a Jewish Orthodox community and that comes back to her father's empty throne is so moving. And I've also connected and recognized Ronit, not only on myself, but on many other women I know. How do you feel that, yes, so again, the question, an author should be able to tell any story, and what strategies, not only in this film, but you think an author should have if he or she wants to tell a story that is foreign to them or distant from themselves?
Right. Well, this is a hot question. I think now it's more of a public domain than it was a couple of years ago. All the idea of cultural appropriation and of who controls the narrative. You know, the problem of who gets to tell the stories, which is absolutely attendable. You know, I think it's pertinent. It's necessary to have the discussion because so many times we've seen that narratives are being stolen for purposes that have nothing to do with the worlds that are being portrayed. Being that said, I believe that artistic freedom should never be restricted. I believe that I don't want to live in a world where there is a central committee that tells me what I can or what I cannot do. You know, I prefer to live in a world where I could really mess up and I can make a mistake as an artist, and then I'm willing to take the ballots in the public square. But I would never support restrictive mechanisms that would refrain any artistic process. I believe that we should be adults enough to deal with an artistic atrocity and condemn it if we see it, as opposed to create a world where we will protect ourselves from that by creating laws that will never allow someone to do such thing as this or that. You know, I think that anyone could film anything within the limits of, common sense. Otherwise, I would end up filming films about a white Latin American semi-privileged heterosexual man. And what I've learned about the films I've made is that I have used them almost like a tunnel that you create from your prison in order to get to a world that is not yours, to touch someone that is not you, and to see what we have in common, because I am not a 58-year-old woman. I am not a transgender girl. I'm not a Orthodox Jew lesbian, but and if after making the films, any of those communities have anything to say about the portraits I've made, if they want to, condemn them and to destroy them, I am prepared for that blow, But if they support them and they are grateful of them and they connect and they think that that it's moving, it's inspiring what they've seen, I'm prepared for that too,
And
what
that's
I'm
what
not prepared. What I'm not
happened.
prepared is for the next script for me to be trembling of fear because I'm talking about someone that is outside my jurisdiction.
I think you made great connections and bridges, and you have lots of support for all your films, right? So I think the empathy is and trying to get in somebody else's skin, even though that's always impossible. But when you try, that's empathy. That's what we writers and directors should try. And how was it? How did you work with Naomi Alderman, the author of the book? How was that? How was it working with her?
Well, Naomi wrote the novel, yes, and then once she trusted us in trusted Rachel Weisz and the team and me and my co-writer Rebecca Lenkiewicz to take over the mission, she really stepped back. And then I showed her the script when it was done, and luckily she liked it. And even though it is a departure from the novel.
Is that,
please?
Because you said departure from the novel, I have to ask, is that beautiful scene in the taxi when they say goodbye to each other and finally, spoiler,
No.
she says, "I love you"? Is that in the book?
No.
Or no?
No, in the book they barely kiss.
Oh.
Yeah, they barely kiss. And here they do a bit more than that.
So I have to ask about the sex scenes, because it's such a beautiful scene between Ronit Estit, Raquel Weisz, and Raquel McAdams, and such an intimate scene. And in your other films also have very powerful, sometimes more romantic, sometimes more naturalistic, intimate scenes and sex scenes. How do you direct these scees? How do you, this scene specifically between in Disobedience and the others in general?
Well, I guess if I explain how we handle Disobedience sex scene, it will inform about the others, because in the script it said, in the novel they didn't even kiss. I mean, they barely kiss. In the script it said they get into the hotel room, and something very obliquous and euphemistic, like there is as much pleasure as there is pain. Cut. End of scene. And
direct that.
That's that. Whatever, do whatever, you know. And but then I draw my films myself. I draw them. I storyboard them myself before shooting. It's a way to pre-film everything. And while drawing Disobedience, I left like 3 pages for the sex scene because I didn't know how to handle it. Is such a restrictive world, you know, the heterodox world, that of course the sex scene was going to be a milestone in the film, and it was to be political. It was going to be political, and it was going to be a statement. It was impossible, even if you did it mildly. That was going to be a statement of, you know, preferring to be kind of like to avoid the problem, to avoid you know, and then while I was drawing it, I thought we should find a way to see what was particular about these 2 lovers, you know, because each couple, they have their own kind of like symphony, you know, and it's different from that. The same body with a different couple is a different outcome. It's not the same. It's not the same movement. It's not the same frictions. It's a particular way in which those 2 bodies vibrate, you know. And I wanted to try to find that. And then we were not rehearsing, but talking about the film with the 2 Rachels. And I said to them, you know, I think this is the most important scene in the film, even though the script is almost like a quarter of a page. And I think it is the heart of the film. Everything will rotate around this moment. And I think it has to last. It has to be long on screen in terms of screen time. And I think we should see what is particular to these 2 lovers. And I made these drawings and I showed them, you know, the different stations and what we would see, you know, the faces, the hands, this and that. And then because they saw it, they said they got it, you know, and I'm very lucky because they were really willing to go all the way and to dare to do it, you know, because it's not the typical thing that you see with Hollywood actors, you know.
No.
But yeah, I mean, we're all very proud of that scene.
It's beautiful.
it is like a film within the film, also, you know. So yeah, but to answer the question, it's I think it's very important for me, at least, for the actors to know what will happen. It has to be designed. Otherwise, it's very uncomfortable for everyone. So you have to put some limits and to share what the goals are in terms of visuals and length, and then we can all agree. You know, and then there won't be that feeling while you're shooting of whatever, like irresponsibility or exploitation or whatever, because it's not easy to be on the other side of the camera exposing yourself. I mean, it's really hard.
So we were talking, our time is almost up, but we were talking just before the interview that you're spending this pandemia in Chile, auxiliated in Chile. But nevertheless, you managed to do a short film for the anthology project of Netflix. How was that? And a musical, and all your films have some kind of music or someone singing. Even Disobedience, Ronit sings a prayer to prove that she's still Jewish in the kitchen, right? So yes. How did you think about this project? How did you do it? How did this short film happen?
Well, it was probably May, so it was like the worst moment, at least in the southern hemisphere. Like winter was coming. We didn't know what was going to happen, if we were all going to die. You know, it was like that moment. So much uncertainty and so much craziness. I was like going insane in my house. Like I was literally, like the lyrics of the short film are literally what I was experiencing, like you know, crashing against my reflection, and all this crazy and this strange, of course, knowing all the pain that was being experienced outside, there was a tragicomical thing to everything. There was an absurdity to everything, and yeah. So they said to me, "Would you like to be part of this compilation of short films made within confinement, so wherever you are, more or less, with what you have, shot with phones, by directors from all over the world?" And I said, "No, of course not." Of course not. Like, leave me alone in my craziness. I don't have the. But then it was like, but listen, if you say yes, you have a month from when you say yes to deliver it. And it was like, okay, let's take some vacations from COVID by doing a COVID mono musical. And it was, it was all the people that are involved, we were connected. And what I did is I wrote these rhymes that are more or less based in a popular way of rhyming for folkloric music in Chile. And this style has this condition of allowing the rhymes to be at the same time serious and humoristic, which is something I wanted. And and I don't know how, in 3 weeks, we created the choreography remotely, working remotely. My dear friend Matthew Herbert, the musician of all the films I made recently, created the score from London. He hired musicians to play from their homes. It was a nightmare. And then Amalia, the actress, learned everything like in 3 days, and I shot it with my phone, with my sister that had never shot anything before. She helped me. So it was, at the end of the day, it was a beautiful opportunity to leave some kind of register of what this was, and to come a bit closer to my dream of making a musical, a full-on musical one day.
I could tell you want to make a musical. I could tell. I was gonna risk that, because my next question would be, my last question. What is I can see lots of Post-its right behind you.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is one of the scripts I'm working. Yeah.
I could tell.
And a metaphor of my brain right now.
And, you know, I could bet that maybe it was going to be a musical. What is your next project? Can you tell us a little bit about it, or what you're thinking of doing?
I cannot, because I don't know which one will be the next. I'm working in 4 projects, but I've been working them since before. It's not like I suddenly have 4. No, it's projects that are coming from way before. Some of them are the product of COVID. One of them especially. But what I can share is that I am trying to explore different genres now. So I'm interested in a musical. I'm interested in making a period film, and also maybe eventually a biopic. Yeah. So I'm kind of like expanding the palette. Something like that.
Great. Good luck. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this interview. And I've learned a lot. I think our audience will also learn a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Rosane.
Sebastián.
Thank you for the conversation.
It was great. Gente, eu estou agradecendo o Sebastián agora em português. Eu agradeço também todo mundo que está assistindo. Obrigada. Até breve.